Okay, David. Can you give us your overview of the Asian travel trade in 2011?
Okay. Been a very interesting year. I think as well, every year seems interesting, but this one was particularly interesting, I think. Very volatile year, lots of ups and downs. Unfortunately started with the event started with what happened in Japan, which was really tragic. I visited Japan in April, just after the tsunami and the earthquake, and it was amazing to see how really everything seemed to have ground a little bit to a halt. We tried actively, we did a few things actively to try to stimulate knowledge and grow, to get growth going back again by getting people to understand that it was safe to go back to Tokyo, and that it was actually a good time to go to Tokyo because it was really easy to get access to hotels and prices were very good, and people were extremely appreciative of any foreigner who actually visited during that time, because they felt a little bit like everyone had sort of run away and left them alone. So that started off, and obviously that I think that was a major event for travel in the region. It led to people cancelling their plans. I remember here in Thailand we saw enormous cancellations because, of course, it was just before the Songkran holidays, and I think a lot of people go to Japan for Songkran, and so everyone just cancelled, and so we saw that happening. People cancelled from Hong Kong and other places. But it was a year marked with other disruptions as well. We had the volcano, we had the problems in the Middle East, which have had a big effect on some companies in the region, like the Philippines, like Indonesia, who send a lot of workers to the Middle East. So we saw those countries very heavily affected. And then we saw the volcanic ash situation as well, which had a disruption on flights, and what happened in New Zealand. So we had, all in all, it was a very eventful year, full of disruptions. I think, looking back though, what the story we see coming out of it is that our reaction to disruptions is that life has to go on. When we look back at what's happened in the past, people have been inclined to stop travelling. When SARS happened, people stopped travelling for quite a long time. Now I think people are realising, or we're all realising, that travel is very much part of our lives and we can't stop travelling. So we have to figure out a way of coping with these disasters, figuring out what's actually wrong, where, so that we don't block off a whole area and we continue travelling to those sites, those destinations. What we did in Amadeus, we've to sort of try to help that, is we've introduced some booking tools which can help corporate customers particularly manage where their employees are. It's called One Click, so that they can actually see where all their employees are at one point in time. So if there is a problem in one particular area, they can instantly, with One Click, which is the product name, see who's in that area or around that area, and message them, get in contact with them by in some way, send a report to them about what's going on in that part of the world, or if necessary, take action to get them out of that area. So that allows people to manage much more actively where their people are, and to react in a more proactive way rather than just sort of like clamming up, which is obviously very bad for business.
Well, it's interesting you mentioned the corporate travel management side. Do you feel there's been, following obviously we had the downturn in 2008, 2009,
Yeah.
How have you seen corporate travel managers respond to that, and how are corporate travel policies, how have they looked in the last year?
Well, I think in the beginning of a financial crisis, we saw a really big downturn in corporate travel. Quite remarkable how travel really seemed to dry up in the corporate sphere. And then we saw it sort of really, after about 6 months, coming back. And I think, it's because people realise that you have to keep travelling. You can postpone trips, you can't cancel trips. You have to go and see customers, and you have to go and try and get new business. So we saw business coming back again. I think it made travel managers more aware of costs, and I think we saw a shift there of of more caution regarding sort of type of flights people going on. The class of travel was one area, obviously, but also getting good deals with airlines. People going to specific hotels, managing more carefully the services they get in hotels, whether they get free internet or other amenities, to really get more out of their spend, because they realised they couldn't cut the travel. The travel isn't a nice to have; it's an absolute necessary part of our working lives. What we've seen from Amadeus's perspective is a greater uptake in our corporate booking tools. We have a very widely used corporate booking tool, Amadeus eTravel Manager, and we've seen more corporations interested in using this to help them to control their costs. So from that point of view, I think corporations are focusing much more on getting real value for money out of their travel budgets.
Was the tool that you just mentioned? Sorry, was that something that you had before the downturn, and have you made any amendments to it since then?
It's a product which we've had in the market for a number of years. Its product has been constantly improved, so we've been doing a lot of work specifically to make it work in the Asia Pacific environment. But it's been a product that's evolved over time, so it's now very, very useful, and we found a lot of our corporate customers really find it a great help for them in managing their costs.
Fantastic. Now, looking ahead, not just in the corporate travel sphere, but in the entire travel industry, what do you think will be the main driving forces in 2012, and do you think we'll see a continuation of the trends we've seen this year?
Well, I think the prospects for the Asia Pacific travel market are still very good. Going back to what we see in 2011 and other years, even when there's crises and we see a very volatile market, what we have seen is a market that has continued to grow throughout and grow very healthily. I think we're going to continue seeing that in 2012. Obviously, again, it won't be a steady growth. There'll be problems with fuel prices depending on how they go, because obviously those affect the airlines. And there's bound to be, as we know, there's bound to be crises along the way. I think in a global environment we're exposed to what happens in the whole world, and there's always something happening somewhere. But I think we are learning to live with those much better, and that will be part of a continuous process. What I think we'll see coming in 2012 is much more mobile technology coming to play. And that will help people actually, again, control their environments. They'll be able to be much more in touch with what's going on in their surroundings, and therefore to manage better when the crisis hits. So you can pin down exactly where you are. I sort of anecdotally, with the floods here in Thailand, I had people up to sort of 2 weeks ago in Europe calling me up and saying, I hope the weather gets better soon. And I'm saying, well, it's fantastic. It hasn't rained for weeks and it's sunny and dry. But the idea of people's idea of floods is that there must be storms, rain, and water rushing around everywhere. And of course, that wasn't the reality. Bangkok as a city was quite safe to visit. And I think mobile usage of people sending more information as to where they are in particular moments in time will help to dispel sometimes what we see in the mass media, which focuses only on the bad and makes it look like it's very extensive. So I believe that we'll be able to, in 2012, we'll be able to manage better crisis management, manage better how we get through these crises. I think we'll continue to see growth in the travel industry. There is enormous potential, I believe, particularly for regional travel growth. When we compare Asia Pacific to other regions, we see that there's a lot of room for growth going from 3 to 4 hour trips from one country to another, like from India to Thailand. I was reading about they're expecting 1 million tourists from India next year in Thailand. Well, it may sound a lot, but that's nothing really compared to how many people they're living in India who travel, or who travel, say, to Goa. Well, Bangkok's just as close for many of those people. So I think that is a big area for development, and we'll see big changes in that area.
Yeah, do you see with, obviously in one of the major trends in Asia Pacific is the proliferation of low-cost carriers, like you say, the 3-4 hour hops between destinations. We've also got coming in next year the Europe, well, it's already in, but the rise in the UK APD, the European ETS scheme. Do you think that these factors will significantly drive intra-Asian both leisure and business traffic in 2012?
I think they probably will, and it's an area where I think is pretty much underdeveloped. And if you look at other areas of the world, you'll see that's the case. The low-cost carriers, of course, have done a lot to open up the leisure market, and also just the travel between people who have displaced families, people moving from town to town. That's really changed enormously. We can mention the fact that so many people now come to Bangkok from Hong Kong or Singapore just for the weekend. That didn't happen a few years ago. It's extremely accessible. But there's lots of other destinations that can be opened up, and I think we'll see more of that. And I think it's a very good thing. The more interaction we get, the more people see how other people live. It's a great development for the world, and I'm very glad that we are part of that development. I feel we sort of contribute something to that infrastructure that allows that to keep happening and keep growing.
Okay, David, so what will Amadeus's focus be in 2012?
Well, our focus in 2012 will be, in many ways, reinforcing what we've done in previous years. We are going to be focusing on mobile technology, so we will have on a mobile handheld device, we'll be able to do booking, we'll be able to service corporate customers, so I think that's a very important advance. Another area which is very important for us, because we have some major airline movements or migrations going on, is that perhaps not everyone knows that Amadeus is very strong in the airline IT area, which means that we provide hosting to airlines around the world. We have around 115 of the world's carriers, and quite a large number of those have signed up over the last couple of years with Amadeus in this region. And we will be starting to migrate those carriers from their in-house IT systems to our system. And that will be quite interesting, because our system is built in a very customer-centric way, which means those airlines will be able to do a lot more than they can today to service their customers and tailor-make their products to their customers with greater flexibility. So I think that will open up more scope, new areas. I think it's going to be very good for the customers of those airlines that have decided to move to Amadeus. So that's going to be an important part of our year in 2012. Another area which we're developing here in Bangkok is a mid-office system for travel agencies. We think it's very, very important that travel agencies are as efficient as they can possibly be in the way they manage their own offices. We all know that staff is very tight, people need to be more efficient, and the way to do that is to cut out as much as administration work as possible and have as many people on the front line dealing with customers, working with the customers of the travel agency. So we've been developing from scratch a whole new product which will help travel agencies manage their offices more efficiently, and we started rolling it out during 2011, and we'll be introducing new modules in 2012, and we're very optimistic that that will really help to make travel agencies a lot more efficient and will help them to compete in the more aggressive environment which we are bound to witness going ahead.
Fantastic. Can you give us any previews of the new modules coming on board?
Oh, the new modules coming on board. Well, we've added. We're going to add general ledger to the system in 2012. We're going to add some modules which are more specifically for the corporate travel agencies. Today, we're really focusing on the leisure agencies, but then we'll move into the corporate space. And actually, we're rolling out in more countries. So today, we're present in Thailand, Malaysia, Singapore and Hong Kong with this product, and next year we'll be rolling it out into a few more countries such as Japan and also into the Philippines. So we'll be expanding the catchment area as well, so that's pretty exciting as well.
Fantastic. And what's the reaction been in the countries where it's already rolled out?
It's been exceptionally good so far. We've actually beaten all our plans. We had expectations, but which were quite high at the time, but they've been beaten. I think there's a real demand from the travel agencies for a set of tools that can help them to really manage their offices in a much more effective manner, efficient way. Because these tools can stop human error, for example. If you've got people managing a large amount of paper, you're bound to end up having human error, so we can get rid of that. We can help the overall management of invoices. Again, very important, I think, in travel agencies where margins are traditionally quite small. So if you can be more efficient in how you're managing your invoices, it makes a big difference to your bottom line at the end. I think those things are really what's pushing this forward. People are very enthusiastic about it. Excellent,
good to hear. And well, finally, can I just ask you who your ones to watch are for 2012?
Okay. Some interesting things I think are happening as we speak, and will continue to happen in 2012. One of those is definitely the online space. We've seen the growth of online travel agencies in the last couple of years, almost arising from almost nothing, from very, very tiny starts, to becoming very large in the region. And I think we're going to continue to see the growth of online travel agencies, breaking into new areas perhaps, and even developing, and I think this is perhaps the most interesting point, actually perhaps helping to develop new markets. And what I mean by that is that I've seen some online travel agencies looking at marketing new routes specifically themselves because of their power to reach a large number of consumers. They can actually drive the success of a new route to a previously unserved destination. I think that's quite an interesting sort of trend that we could see. I also think that the growth that we see, for example, in the online space and in some other areas of the travel industry in Asia Pacific could be trends that are actually extended to other areas of the world eventually. And I think that's a major difference, because today what we're seeing is most of the trends and most of the way we work in the travel industry has come from either Europe or the US. It starts first there and it sort of extends into this part of the world. I think we're starting to see a shift. We're starting to see new ideas coming up in this part of the world, which is basically because large populations, large travelling public, they can generate, there's enough public there that when a new idea comes along, that new idea can catch on. And I'm very excited about that. I think there's going to be some really good new ideas coming out of this part of the world, which we'll see extended into the rest of the world. So the flow will start going the other way. And I think that's going to be really exciting, because I'm looking forward to being part of it here in Asia Pacific.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, David.
Thank you.